Why do so many Nigerians turn to substance abuse in the first place?
It's not even about why, but it's about what are they running from? What are they choosing to leave before say that they want to look for a coping mechanism?
From time immemorial, human beings have always found a way to run away from pain and seek pleasure and more pleasure. One is taking a particular substance at a particular dose. After a week or two, that same dose does not produce the same pleasure. And so he increases the dose he's taking, forgetting that this is harmful consequence to his organs or her organ systems in the body.
First of all, can you tell us what is the biggest lie young Nigerians believe about drugs?
One of the biggest lies is that I think if I take this, I think I'll be fine. We had guys that were not stealing generators and they were not stealing gas cookers. What were they stealing? They were stealing the hose that were connected to it because they want to do ice and bunker. They want to smoke with bulbs. We sent an advisory memo to NDLEA. We did a survey and we saw that most boat riders, those that do rides at night, we saw that they would always traffic drugs for those students in Nile and Bayes University.
Solomon Makanjuola is a substance abuse prevention advocate with I Choose Life Foundation. Through community outreach awareness campaigns and youth-focused interventions, he has worked to address drug abuse and support prevention efforts across Nigeria. On this episode of Beyond Addiction, we take a deep dive into why young people turn to drugs and substance abuse, exploring the pressures, struggles, and realities that often lie behind addiction. Welcome once again to the Beyond Addiction podcast. I am Amadin Ogbewe as always. Today we want to take a step somewhere deeper. We want to find out the why. The why behind why young persons turn to substance abuse. The why behind addiction. And we have someone who's very well versed in this to help us break this down and really understand what's going on and why we have this problem in the first place. It's from the I Choose Life Foundation, a foundation that is very dedicated towards tackling substance abuse issues in the country. I'm talking about Mr. Solomon. Welcome to the program. And Dr. Hope is also here as well all the time to,
As
help
always.
us. Welcome, Mr. Solomon. How are you doing today?
I am very, very well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry you didn't get the memo. We're all dressed up in t-shirts. And
I'm surprised. I feel stuck somehow.
You feel what?
I feel stuck.
Well, based on what you're doing, you have to, put up a good one. So I want to start from the basics.
Okay.
Like I said, the conversation is about why we're experiencing what we are. We've had this, multiple conversations, and we always quote this statistic of about 14%. Like we always like to point out a caveat. We know that the data is not current, but it's what we have, and that equates to millions of young persons between the ages that the survey was done for. So the question is, why do so many Nigerians turn to substance abuse in the first place? In your experience with the I Choose Life Foundation, what is the consistent answer you've gotten?
Thank you very much. Well, once again, sorry for not following, the fashion convention.
Keep us serious.
I choose to be the deviant for today.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm glad to be seated with Dr. Hope of Vigada Detox Centers. And then, yes, Mr. Famous, thank you very much. So, yeah, if you look at the question, why, when you say why do these guys decide to say they want to go for substance abuse, I feel it's not necessarily beyond, it's beyond the question of why. Because you look at it, every time we get the facts and the statistics, we get to hear 14.4% of people, UNODC, National Bureau of Statistics, they say Kano has the highest, numbers of percentage that we have. Dr. Hope here obviously represents, one of the, persons and institutions that are facilitating reintegration and rehabilitation. So yes, but if I were to chip in something based on, carving out the nouns, based on my experience in the field, I would rather say that it's not even about why, but it's about why. What are they running from? Why? What are they choosing to leave before say that they want to look for a coping mechanism to now use to like an alternative? So there is something that they are actually running away from. But based on statistics, the first thing I gathered is that growing up, most people lack the emotional regulation skills. So one of the major reasons is that you can't easily regulate emotion. So just a little bit of downtime. Of course, just like summer, winter, autumn, and spring. Everybody will have their autumn seasons. Just a little bit of downtime. The next thing you feel like you want to run and cope. And then sometimes, there's what they call like neuroplasticity, which means that in neuroscience is like repetition it will rewire behavior. So you begin to build dependence. You feel like, okay, it looks like you want to listen to sad song, you want to listen to Billie Eilish, and then you think, oh, it's just lullaby, it's just white noise, I want to listen to these things. So you're not necessarily actively even using substances. If you are looking it in a robust version, we are looking at, addiction, you needed a coping mechanism, something you can just go back and depend into. So why would they choose to go? Because firstly, they do not have emotional regulation skills. So it's not easy for them to handle an information, maybe just a little breakup, maybe an issues in the office, maybe someone talked down on them, and then they come back to the room, and then the next thing, maybe they want to take wine, they want to take alcohol, they want to probably use substances, or different behavior, their behavioral addictions.
Do you think this is coming down from the parents?
Well, not necessarily, because we don't really have a structured, environment in itself. We don't have mental health based systems. We don't have we have, of course, because we will not actually emphasize the people that are actually playing, this big role. But the thing is that, it's not yet seen as something that is important. If you meet someone and say, I'm going to see a psychiatrist or I'm going to see a mental expert, the person is like, you are mad.
Yes.
So, these are the things that you get. So obviously, it's actually, there is no proper awareness concerning these things. It's been underreported. The informations are filtered. So in the information landscape pertaining to, why people want to have coping mechanisms, there's emotional coping deficits presently. So people don't have that emotional regulation skills. And we live in an environment, we live in a generation whereby we have high dopamine realities, we have highly stimulated things. Everybody, it's easy to get bored. It's easy for you to, so it's like that the dopamine level is high. You need high reward frequency, something that can just keep you ecstatic. You just need a little bit of, I just need a little more, the Oliver Twist vibe of, emotions. I need a little more, the culture of, you just wanting more. So,
you know what I asked about parents? The moment you mentioned emotional regulation, my mind went somewhere. Although from the more you talk, I realized you might also be referring to something else. What I was referring to is how parents react to their children, displaying emotion and different sort of things. There's this, in the African context specifically, there's this, let me not put excessive, there's a high need for optimum respect, obedience. That is to say, if a child is voicing a counter opinion, it's seen as, shut up your mouth, don't do that. And then there's something we talk about a lot. Some persons who are religious will say, spare the rod, spoil the child. But you find that every time a child errs, the response is always physical. Yes, you might use a cane and it might not, be considered abuse in some setting, but it's always the reaction. So that even when an older child is offended by a younger child, the older child, even if it's 1 year, even if it's 1 second, wants to beat the younger one to show, I am your senior. So when you said emotional regulation, what I first thought about was how we handle negative emotions. Because in the African context, we are usually taught that do it physically. Even in real life, it might interest you to know that some persons will say, if this person collects 1 or 2 slaps, it will get sense. Because there's this feeling that is how you teach. And if you now are found to be on the other side, for instance, we hear about gentle parenting, and people say, what is that? What do you mean you asked your child his opinion? So I'm wondering, does this contribute to, that oneness of mind in how to respond to things instead of say, okay, let me listen to this person, let me hear their opinion. Maybe if they talk more, if they ever experience that boredom or whatever they're feeling, they could also come meet me rather than, hey, mommy, I'm feeling bored. Shut up. When I was your age, I was climbing the streams and I was not bored, So I'm wondering if that is a part of it as well when it comes to emotional regulation and if it can push people towards substance abuse.
Actually, what you just mentioned is actually the fundamental. You see how that, their generation is totally different. You're dealing with, at least for you to be a parent, now we're looking at a millennial. Now we are talking about people from Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and whatsoever we'll be having. Or the alphabet will still come. And then maybe now it's looking like Greek alphabets. Now we're having Gen Alpha. So, but you see, when you come from there, there's a way you can actually administer certain discipline to a child, to the point that the child will, just like the body can build antibodies and resistance towards a drug because of constant usage. At the end of the day, you can see that child will be like, "Shebi, they will just beat me. They will just beat me and go home." So, I will still go back to the fact that, looking at this current generation, this highly stimulated generation where there's a culture of immediate gratification. People they long for something more. People get bored easily. Everybody if you're bored, you go to scroll your phone. If you want that neurological reward, you want to check a pornographic website. Now, the parents, there is a missing link between the parents and the children. I consider parenting to be a discipline, an act that should be learned. The fact that you can father a child or you can mother a child does not mean that, you should think that you have the faculty and the tools that it takes to actually set that child forward and oversee the child. So I think, this actually creates the gap for us to even create awareness for that. A parent should actually go to learn. There are seminars, you go and meet a psychologist and say, "Please, can you give me guide on how can I condition my children constructively?" Not necessarily saying that, "Oh, why would you do that?" Okay, someone trying to we are trying to introduce the westernization culture, and you're like, "Oh, you did this, go and lock yourself in the room for 5 hours." And I don't understand, how does that work? As a traditional man, you are looking at as how.
Are you against that? Are you saying it doesn't work?
Well, I would not really there's a standpoint I would choose to see. Okay. I have a frame of reference. Okay. I don't want to disclose that. However, but if you were to speak, on the scale of 1 to 10 and see how effective, how realistic are these things, someone saying that, "Oh, you did this," and now the child cannot now trust that parent anymore. The guy is having his first babe. Now he can't tell his mom. He's speaking to a guy on Facebook. I met a child that was chatting. This boy, his mom is actually a very, very wealthy and a renowned person. But then he's chatting with a girl on Facebook, thinking he has a babe. But of course, that's a guy in probably Ajegunle, that's trying to catfish that. So you see, this guy cannot even trust information. He cannot depend upon the mother. So you don't expect. So he doesn't consider her to be a safe space, because even before this guy even took the meat in the pot, the mother is already come and say, "You took the meat in the pot." So the guy already feels like you are just going to label. So parents need to actually quit more of labeling and then look for constructive approaches. And in my own opinion, you cannot wish your way into being a good parent. You need to learn it. You need to be intentional. Go for structured training. They have structured training in Vigada detox centers. Take, for example, imagine that it's after a child has gone through rehabilitation. That is when the parent will now come and learn how to undo that boy. So what if we did this training before even anyone went for rehabilitation? Now you see that you can now see more excellence in parenting when a child comes and say, "Okay, now the mother is careful not to label and say you sold the wires in the house, you sold the TVs to get drugs." Now the mother is like, "Oh, okay, it's fine. It's fake. Do you want to talk about it? Do you feel safe? Should I come again?" These approaches are not. You can't watch a movie to apply to it, because it's not one size fits all. It requires you need to read the room. You have to be more sensitive, and then you cannot also. I will still stand the fact that you cannot take the place of cultural impact. You need to understand where to be stand. If you are a believer, you need to say, "No, my boy, you don't do that." You need to know how to, because it's in psychology, there's what we call the chaos theory, the butterfly effect. The little things you neglect, the little informations you do not. Yes, the compounding decay. At the end of the day, it builds up a narcissist, builds up a serial killer. But there's also a good way we can actually create it, like a ripple effect. You just one impact into that medium, it creates a wave propagation. There's a way you can actually drop something in a child, and the child feels like, "Okay, I can actually come back. It's okay to talk to my mom." That, "Okay, now mom, I think I am pregnant." Now you can see that even currently, young girls are coming into their seasons whereby they are now seeing changes in their body. They are not able to trust their mom. And this girl never did anything with a guy, but she's seeing blood, but she cannot even trust her mom with information. So you see, there's a missing link between those two. So I think I will just stop there for now.
I'll just ask Dr. Hope.
Okay.
I hope to be a father someday. Can I come for those pre-trainings so I know what to expect before time?
Yeah, it's amazing to have Mr. Solomon, on this show. It's an organization, the Choose Life Foundation, that has, I think, for almost a decade now, if not over a decade, carried out programs with young people, especially young people. So I'm not surprised with the volume of information that he's churning out on this podcast. So you see, I agree, and I've always come from that standpoint that we shouldn't be talking about unemployment as a cause of drug abuse or peer pressure as a cause of drug abuse, that indeed there are emotional regulation gaps, as he mentioned, that are the reason for these issues, right? Because you have 100 students who are exposed to peer pressure, the same peer pressure, but not 100 of them will use a substance.
True.
So it means that the people who are using or succumbing to the peer pressure simply lack certain emotional, they have some gaps that need to be filled. Now, do we throw it to the parents? Again, some of the parents themselves do not even have those skills, which is where the training he has rightly mentioned comes in. I'm surprised that he's not mentioning that the Achieve Life Foundation also carry out trainings. I'm aware of some of the trainings they are doing for even some MDAs, right? And of course, in 2019, my organization, partnered with the Ministry of Women Affairs then to train some women and, of course, fathers who are interested. Our target was, women, right? Okay. To equip them with skills. First was for them to understand what addiction is. It's good that they have the knowledge of what addiction is. The second is they now understand how to respond to this crisis in the homes. For instance, a child comes and tell you, Mom, I want to confide in you about something. That is if there is even the safe space in the home to discuss that, right? And I say that, how does your child even know that you will not punish them when they bring information? Just like he mentioned, a child was suffering sexual abuse, was scared to tell the dad because the criminal told the child that if you tell your dad, he's going to beat you. And
that the dad will beat the victim.
Yes. So because of that, and she's aware, just like, Mr. Solomon said, that the child has not even stolen the meat from the pot. You're already saying, and you are saying it out of anger.
Yes, anger. Yeah.
So these are negative information. And nobody likes negative information.
Yes.
So the child, we withdraw because mother is shouting, mom is shouting. So you see that. So she, and I tell parents, I said, see, you don't have to shout for your child to hear you. When you are shouting, psychologically, it tells the person that the person is far away. I'm shouting, I'm here. Right?
Yeah.
So, but you can be firm. Right? Junior, take the cup out of the kitchen. You repeat again. So there are ways to these things. Now, the child allowed this criminal to continue the behavior. Why? Because she became scared to tell the father. Do you know, she was only eventually able to tell her class teacher that later called her and said, come, if you like, go and beat her. But this is it. So you see, parents must create that safe space in the home that gives room for these conversations. And one of those ways is letting them know that they have an opinion and that their opinion counts. And I tell parents, as small as, the color of bed sheet on your child's mattress, as small as asking them, oh, Junior, Lydia, what do you think about the bed sheet? Do you want a pink or purple? Just let them feel that they matter in the house. That is why it is easy for them to associate with the group, the gang in the school, and then find an identity there, because in the school, they can give an opinion, oh, this is how she wear your shirt, and the other friend will wear the shirt that same way. But in the house, there's nothing she says or he says that counts. And so she just finds an identity in that group and begin to see that that group is superior to the family group. Now, so there's something for Arsenals who have just won their, there's a way you always come about it. You think that your group is always better. And then what makes it your group? Because you feel that your opinion matters here. So you identify with the group. Once you identify with a group, I'm always going to think that my company is better. My father's family is better. My family is better because I identify with that group. So your child, despite being formed from the family group, grows into another group in school, a gang, and then where his opinion or her opinion matters, she identifies with that group and now sees the opinion of that group better than the family group. So whenever the group says, let's go truant today, let's not go to school tomorrow, let's go somewhere, but the family said go to school, he or she would tend to obey, follow the opinion of the group where her own opinion also is respected. So we must find a way where our children's opinion at home matters. And like he said, some parents, some child will come and tell their mom, I feel down. They're like, down for waiting. This is your generation. What are you, if you know what we faced when we were at your age, what are you, now you can sleep under SU, you are saying you feel down. What do you mean by that? Now you are telling the child to shut up.
Yeah.
Now that's not emotional regulation. Part of emotional regulation skills includes expression.
Yes.
So like she said, when you compound the decay, they explode. If I had a cup and a water, I would show you what mental health is about.
Yeah.
As you keep pouring life problems, they keep pouring on the cup. A time comes when it will spill over.
Yes.
And that is the manifestation that that spillover is the mental health issues that you see manifesting, where the person goes overboard and begin to manifest in those behaviors. So one of the things, again, I just mentioned, create that safe space where children can talk to parents. Now, then we taught them how to respond. So the child comes and says, Mom, I have a problem with this substance. Oh, this particular boy showed me one particular substance. I've tried to use it and it's making me feel this way. I don't like it. Now, how do you respond? Do you beat the child? Do you insult the child? Okay, do you report the child to a pastor and imam who does not even have knowledge about psychology? Right? And then who will now call him and preach to the child that this is against the standard of God. If you do this, you will go to hell. Now, again, you are coming from scare tactics. The pastor is telling the child that if you do this, you go to hell. Yeah. Or another person who doesn't have knowledge is saying, if you do this, you go mad. But the child knows someone who takes drugs and is not mad. Yeah. So you are lying to the child again with information, right? Yes, now, so you see, do you respond that way? It's also wrong. So how do you respond? Appropriate response. These are very key. Yeah. Now, if your child has to go to the rehab, right? Like he said, you should have this information so that you will know how to aid their coping strategy. Not just for them, but for yourself. How you understand addiction is important to helping you go through the process of having your child in rehab, because it's psychologically draining also for parents to even have their child in rehabs.
Yeah. All right. I'm sorry to cut in there, Doctor. First of all, I should say that was you really broke it down. And,
holistic.
Yeah, and I should just agree with you on one point also. Arsenal fans are very notorious. It's true. That's
I'm guessing you're not.
I'm not one.
No matter how they lose, they love Arsenal.
Yeah, like they are very emotionally attached to that, and you cannot touch their club, or they will touch you.
It's group psychology.
Exactly.
That's group psychology.
Yes. So, but what I just want to add, this is just my own little perspective. I feel like if you train a child, I'm talking as a child. I'm not talking as a parent. I don't know how it is.
Fair enough.
But I'm talking as I feel like if you train a child excessively to be obedient, I think you're also training them for the people who want to influence them outside.
Sure, they become porous,
vulnerable. You have beaten out the no in them. So they are used to do this. If you say no, and it's conditioning. So now when they go outside and somebody says, take drugs, I mean, they've been conditioned to obey. They will obey. But what I find interesting is those kids who are usually opinionated, who some people say they have running mouths, that even when their mom is talking, mommy is not correct too. That child is less likely to be influenced. You can't tell that child, take drugs. You say, why? I say, it will make you feel good. Really? How? Why? Because they are also conditioned to question, I don't want, the rebel is not a right word, but they are questioned to, they are raised and conditioned to question, to ask why, to say, to understand the reasoning behind something before they do it. Because the parents did not say, whenever you ask why, they slapped you. If you asked why, they explained to you, and you understood it, and then you did it. So let's move now to social media, music, and influence culture. What happens to the mind of, say, a 17-year-old, a teenager, when they go on Twitter, TikTok, and they see persons glorifying substance abuse? The other day, I won't mention names, I saw there's a video of two artists, just playing around on a video. This is them in their elements. So it's not like it's a music video where they are portraying a story, which is still debatable, or perhaps a movie. It was just them. And the first one asked the other one, how far? Which loud we go buy today? And they're just contemplating. Is it Canadian? Is it this? Is it that? And it was very casual. It felt like the same thing you could say about, say, what am I going to have for breakfast? It was normalized. So what do you think is happening psychologically to a young person, say a teenager or even preteen, who is viewing that and seeing it as access to coolness, to being rich, or to being successful?
Well, that's really, really very sad if I were to, start with. We now have we have a cancer that's eating the fabrics of our societal norm. And, so if you're looking at the threshold of morality, it looks like it's adjusted. So basically, if you want to, look at that area of what a child will do. How will a child, process the information? Firstly, my heart would even go first to, regulatory bodies. You can see like YouTube platforms, you upload something, you're using a song that is not yours. And then the next thing they're flagging it up.
Yes.
So, but then they would not flag an information that could actually like affect a child that is still, is in its formative years, where the prefrontal cortex is still being developing. Now, that kind of child that maybe even adults, some adults are yet to even know what their identity is. They are still trying to like, okay, what's my purpose in life? You see people go as far as being, religious about it, trying to define their own existence. So now in a situation where we have, a young child, someone in the teenage years, watching a video like that, of course, what do you expect? It's more like garbage in, garbage out. You can make your choices, but you can't choose your consequences. You're watching that video, that information comes into you. It's going to affect how you're being formed because, it's an information. So when you receive, because that's what intelligence is, the brain actually has intelligence. And for pattern recognition, you can actually gather structured information, from what you see and what you hear. So if a child is watching a video, and what do you expect? You're receiving an information. It's like a large language model, like machine learning algorithm. This information is a data. Then I try to gather actionable insights. Now, it now decides my own parameters. Like, so I now use this as an opinion. And I said, okay, this is how, I would also like that these options are also consistent in my own life.
Can I play devil's advocate for a moment here?
Okay.
Let's assume I'm in the position of the artist. So some of the questions they ask is, what about my creative expression? What about my right to express myself creatively? Because they class all of this under creativity. Just the other day, a female musician shared a DM she got, and she said it was a DM from a father who is a fan of hers. I mean, the man was complaining that your latest video, I saw it and I thought something was going to be nice, and I played it and I started saying certain things. And she said, am I supposed to do Baby Shark to do? That's not that has never been my thing. You should be the one to keep your children from that. Put them somewhere else. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. That's your business. So I'm wondering, how do you respond to that? If the artist is saying, I'm just telling a story here, I'm not trying to, it's up to you to know what you took. How do you respond to such a person?
Okay, so firstly, you cannot even be too careful. You cannot box up. Just like relationships where the guy wants to always control, the girl. At some point, she gets tired and she says, I'm not really doing anymore. So even if you're a father to a child, the child does not want to feel fathered. It does not want to be instructed every time and corrected every time. There has to be a place for fun. There has to be a place whereby I can speak to you as a friend. So if you find that kind of experience, which is actually consistent in this world, it's more like the Garden of Eden, whereby everywhere you turn, you always see the tree. You cannot be too careful. You cannot control the information. The information landscape has a strong power dynamics. You cannot control it. So you don't focus on how the fire will not burn the world, but you focus on how the fire will not burn your child. So it comes back to, the early years of the formation of the emotional regulation skill, the good parenting, the constructivity, the ability to, let the child feel like my opinions are valid. You can respect my decision. So if you have your child inside the house and then you're able to bring your child through those processes, the peer group, the societal, environmental influence that affect that child, I feel the child will not, you cannot deal it from that. That's a fruit. You cannot deal with the issue from the fruit because it's like a domino effect. You tamper the first, you alter the rest. So if I impact this child with certain information and it forms that child's opinion, perspectives.
What could that information look like? Because I'm just trying to picture it. I don't envy parents, the work that they have to do. Take, for instance, I'm trying to raise a child right, but I know what is in the world. I know we're in the jet age, computer age, that they could go to the school and somebody with a smartphone will show them the thing I have been keeping them from. Maybe I've put Kids Lock on my TV, on the YouTube, and I've kept them away from it successfully in the house. Now they've gotten there. What kind of advice could you tell a child that, look, you may encounter some things, I don't know, what would that even look like?
The best way to shield a child from certain realities is to actually expose the child structurally to that reality. You don't teach a child do's and don'ts. You teach a child times and seasons. You are actionable in your approach towards a child. Let me give you an example. Let me give you what life can be. Okay, take for example, don't think about a pink big elephant. Do not think about a pink, please. Don't change the color. Don't think about a pink big elephant. At the end of the day, it came to you as a thought. Maybe you didn't even process it to think it. But then, so you see, it's actionable. Your mind did not consider pink, don't. Your mind didn't consider do not think. All your mind saw was pink, big elephant.
I saw it.
So, someone can be like, I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be poor. But the energy, the emotion you pass into it, you suddenly discover that all life options, you are becoming poorer. You understand? So that's the same way you become actionable with a child. You don't teach them do's and don'ts. You give them times and seasons. You show them the structure. You showed, just like I started earlier, imagine a teacher. We did a teaching for, some students in Akwanga, Nasarawa last year, May 14th. It was a sip and paint, a creative alternative, a creative expression. Okay, come and paint. We are going this year, June, to this Ushafa area of, pottery, whereby we just teach them how to come and mold something. You can make your choices, but you can't choose your consequences. You see, if a child has a structured form within himself, that child can handle anything. So let me just even stop there because I know there are other questions that will link through. All right, so
yeah, like I said earlier, that I Choose Life has chosen to attend to these issues in areas that are mostly ignored, and that's about the most important area, which is the young people before they even get to that point, right? Where we start running everywhere looking for rehabs that are not even available. As much as they are needed, right? So you see, it is important that we are able to give structure information to our kids, right? But the problem again is the parents themselves don't even have that information.
Not informed. Yes.
So that means that when you are talking about drug prevention, one key area is drug education for parents.
Yeah.
So you are talking about women and family drug education program, as we did in 2019, and we hope to do more. We're talking about child drug education in schools. And it's not enough to just go in there and do what we call drug-free clubs. That again may not be very effective in terms of the outcome of your intervention. Now, but information that help these young people to be able to structure, how they live their lives, to gain resilience skills, to solve problems, to manage their time, right? To learn self-confidence and be assertive, right? All of this information and this training can aid them to be able to say no. So that even at home, when these children start having this information and they get home, mothers or parents say things and they're like, Mom, no, I wasn't taught like that. And you hear mothers say, what do you know? Do you know when I went to school before you? Again, because the parents lack that information, which is why we are not going to just teach the children and leave the parents. Because if you are teaching the children what the parents don't know, when they show it up at home, the parents will fight it.
One step forward,
right. So you see, you have to put that two-pronged approach in this matter. If we are really ready to reduce the demand of substance abuse in our society, because as far as there is demand, right, the businessman, unfortunately, the drug traffickers, the barons, will always find a way to supply because there is demand. There is a market for it. And this market, unfortunately, are the lives of our young people. Now, who are very impressionable. Just like she said again, they are in that age where it is the area of reward, the area of pleasure, and even more pleasure. Short-term thinking, short-term, gratification, instant gratification. Those areas are the ones that mature first in younger people before the area of long-term, area of personality formation, area of meaning, identity, purpose, which is the prefrontal cortex. That's where he was trying to broach into. So now that area develops after the first area.
Pleasure.
So you understand. So you see the adolescent, the young person, he starts growing up and he's after pleasure and more pleasure. And it's not the first to do that. From time immemorial, human beings have always found a way to run away from pain and seek pleasure and more pleasure, which is another drag that substance abuse, unfortunately hands down to the people who suffer them. For instance, one is taking a particular substance at a particular dose. After a week or two, that same dose does not produce the same pleasure. And so he increases the dose he's taking, forgetting that this is harmful consequence to his organs or her organ systems in the body. Now, sometimes you admit patients and their livers, the enzymes are on the high. Their kidneys, they've been patients who have had to go for dialysis and sometimes they eventually lose their lives from the consequences, health consequences of their behavior.
Indeed.
Right? Now, so you see, we must know that this is a big deal. We don't just keep shouting, government, government, government. Today, let us all begin to pay attention to develop ourselves. It's not enough to get money to train your children. It's enough. I mean, you should also consider learning yourself, develop yourself on drug education. All right? You can go on. I mean, there are several times the Choose Life Foundation can bring out call. And unfortunately, when you even give out this for free, people don't even come.
People do not come. Exactly.
People don't even, sometimes they are available for free. Sometimes I Choose Life organize a webinar. People don't attend it.
Do not attend.
And now I Choose Life has a helpline.
Yes.
People can even call and get information. You can even call for emergencies, for crisis issues. And you can also call and say, my child is going through this. What do you advise? People don't even use those available means. You see, even when they are for free.
It's
So it is that the lack of awareness of what our problems are and how to deal with it are not available. Because we keep shifting the blame. So, it is unemployment, it is peer pressure, it is whatever. But the problem is that these children are not properly brought up. They don't have...
But do you think some of this training is helping us raise better parents?
Of course it will. If they undergo the training and use the information.
I mean the young persons who will become parents.
Of course, if you empower someone with an information, the person can actually weaponize it against, the issues that will rise in that society. Take, for example, even the Federal Minister of Education had to start a system of training called, NSQ certification, which is National Skill Qualification Certification. So now we saw that we sent an advisory memo. He was also present in the ad hoc committee of the House of Assembly. That was around December 14th last year. And then one of the things we proposed was that based on what we have gathered from the field, we saw that, one of the strongest preventive advocacy is actually skill acquisition. Now, we could no longer deal with those children. We're now dealing with adults now, because there's no how you always connect substance to the root cause, which is mental health issues. That's why we started with emotional regulation, coping skills. And, it looks like an algorithm. Now, there was a season whereby everyone wanted their child to become a lawyer or a doctor.
True.
So nobody wants to be a plumber. And then presently, we are now seeing that the richest guy in that street is actually that guy that is installing solar. So you see, so now we are now using skill acquisition. That's what we recommend for most of our persons that probably are going through depression, skill acquisition. Presently, we are running a training, that we train people on solar PV, creative media, and then also satellite CCTV installation. And then they come around, and we also connected it with the TVET accreditation for the Federal Ministry of Education so that they can get, compensational benefits. We traveled to Adamawa some months ago, and then, we saw those children. Now, let me give you an example. Tell me how these children will not be able to weaponize this information and then stand their ground. So we got to Adamawa, and then we saw these children. They were struggling with certain things. In the Yola North, we were dealing with an IDP camp called Malkoi IDP camp. So we got there. So we saw that they lacked light issues. They were not, it's not an environment that you can say that these guys are proud of light, that they don't even know what NEPA should be, So, but they just know that, once in a while it comes around. And then, of course, they have good infrastructures in those places. So what do we do? So we looked at them. We said, okay, come, guys, now, when you are in a place, you need to understand what is accessible, what is available, and what is available, accessible, and affordable. And they're like, oh, that's a good one. And we're like, okay, look at it. What do you lack the most here? We're like, okay, what we lack the most here is light. Okay. Then we took those children, we trained them how to create power banks. They say, if you're bored, just join two wires together, join a diode. You can create a power bank. Do you need light? You can also add a touch to the power bank. We brought an ITEL power bank and we showed them. We said, you can see this power bank can charge your phones, and also you can also switch on light. So it came to a point, we stayed there for a week. And then sometimes when a child comes around and be like, I don't know, I'm not happy, but then I don't know if you have an extra battery. Now, look at as basic as that information is. That child feels like, okay, if I'm bored now, I need to just build a power bank. Can you imagine that? So it's like we told them that you can brighten the corner that you find yourself. So I feel like if you empower a child, one of the constructive means to really train a child is that you replace that information. You must replace what you cannot come and say, I do not want you to come into this area. You need to fill that, because that gap will be filled either by that guy in school that probably his father used to send him to go and buy beer. There's always going to be, even if it's like a very controlled private school, there's a guy that his elder brother now is now back from school. It's like, boy, there are a lot of things. Even you find them in some of these universities, private universities here. We even sent, we sent an advisory memo to NDLEA, to the Brigadier General Gabamawal, and then the editorial director, which is Mr. Femi Babafemi. We did a survey, and we saw that most boat riders at night, those that do rides at night, we saw that they would always traffic drugs for those students in Nile and Bayes University. Our office happened to be situated in SciTech, so we saw a lot of students. So we take a ride, like, what's up? Why are you here? I said, oh, I want to deliver. Now, these boat riders now are aware. So when they want to, so I order a ride. I will not use a bike ride. So I order a ride. So I'm ordering a car ride. And then now you call me and I'm like, bro, I'm not going again. Can you just help me drop this? No, I'm aware. Because for you to tell me you're not going again and you tell me to deliver a package for you, what does that mean? I'm telling you, bro, it's not 5K anymore, it's 15K. So now, because of that, there's a reward-based system. Humans do not want to do what is bad. They want to do what works for them. So there's a reward-based system. There's a result-based system. So I'm like, okay, if this works, as long as I'm not using the drug. Now, these guys do not see themselves as advocates of, anti-drug. They just feel like, oh, as long as I get my payment. So we had to send it. Do you know, that same week, like 3 drivers were stopped through search, and then whatsoever judgment would befall them in the face of justice, they had themselves served.
How did you discover that?
No, because that's what we do. Yeah, so we had to do surveys. We met boat riders. What's up with night rides? Do you have friends that do night rides? Why do you use? I was like, okay, you meet someone, you're like, how do you make your funds? And it's like, I think I make a lot of money at night. What happened that you make a lot of money at night? Is it that the rating increases? Because I know at night the surge is meant to be lower. So why are you making a lot of money at night? I say, because there are some of these students, they just want me to send package. If they want to send package, why are they not using bikes? They could use this overhauling dispatch logistics. Why do they want a car that would seat 4 people to go and deliver something? And all of them are always saying that I'm not going anymore. Like, they'll just let me deliver. And then you are aware. You can't tell me you're trying to claim ignorance and you're trying to be innocent, but you're aware that this is so, through those informations, and we have some of them that are like, bro, let me tell you the truth. I've seized a lot of students have seized their phones here. And that's why you see that when they owe the dealer, they should deal with that dealer with the full strength of the law. They should not grant that dealer locutus even when they are about to pass judgment on that dealer. Why? Because you see how, we've met some students that called us through our mental health helpline, and then you see a lady that has not been, she does not have a carnal knowledge of a guy. And then she's in 200 level in like a university like Nile University. And then you see that the first experience she was having is with a dealer that she cannot now meet up with the payment of it. These guys will take their funds, will take their bodies, will take everything from them. And these are students that their parents are paying whatsoever million in school, in their accommodation. Like, we have hostels in SciTech. And then we see that some of these students are even paying like 2.5 million naira. And there's a bus to pick them in the morning, and these students are still connecting to the dealers. So you see that, so that's why you see that when if we don't actually take the routes at the end of the day, we play around with the fruits a lot.
Yeah, I can see your passion a lot, and I really see why I'm reluctant to use the word I've used before. Okay. Let's call it the advocacy against drug substance abuses is really moving. I mean, it's shocking to find out that when you mentioned ride-hailing drivers, I thought you were going to say that they use drugs to stay awake at night so they can drive. And, to find out now that these drivers are being used to transport or traffic drugs, even, within the cityscape, is quite interesting. And it's a sad one, but I'm glad, and this is why we do this. People might think that they can't help, but this is something that I Choose Life Foundation is able to do as a private entity. So I think everyone has some level of power to do something.
Yeah,
so
true.
Speaking of that, I was going to ask before about how economic realities can push people into drugs, but I feel you've touched it even with the aspect of, skill development. Is as though you are already trying to counter
mitigating the issues.
Yeah. So let's quickly move to a little something else. So the story you just said is touching, where someone who has a substance abuse problem is now being taken advantage of in a sexual manner, another manner, just because they can't pay. So how do we spot these things, the signs and prevention? What can we look out for as parents, teachers, friends, colleagues? What's those things we should pay attention to so that we can help ourselves? This is assuming it has happened or it is on the way to happening. What are signs we can watch out for and say, I think, and then we can call Dr. Hope or call Mr. Solomon that something is happening. I think something is, help us. Yeah.
Okay, now, if I get the question correctly, you are addressing it towards an individual.
Yes.
Now, you're dealing with an ocean, and then you could have dealt with the aquarium. Now, what you could control. Now you want to control a wildfire that is burning from Chicago to wherever. So now, in my own opinion, I would still go back to the fact that they are corrective measures, basically. Okay. But, I would still go back to...
Corrective or preventive?
They are like corrective measures. Now, that's like post happenings and events. No, but I would still say the best way to correct is just like they say that the best way, like the greatest way the devil will fight your harvest time is by fighting your seed time. So which means that that's one of the strongest form of, trying to mitigate these issues. If you do not want to get to that point, trust me. Because, I was speaking with Dr. Hope, some, weeks ago, and he said, my brother, recovery is not an event. Because we had two people that we took for rehabilitation. They just did their, I was asking, I said, so when are they doing their convocation or graduation? I was like, convocating. There's no certificate here. He said recovery is for life.
For life.
I'm like, so if it's for life, there's an event, there's an experience, and then there are the effects of it. So if it's for life, the best thing, you don't even know so much. Don't even learn how to swim. Don't even learn how to, because just learn how to walk on water. Because because you will not know there are so many. If you copy it from here, there are other technologies, there are other intelligence that are yet to be released on the scope of how we can actually do drugs and dealers can actually sell drugs. You are yet to, the same way knowledge keeps increasing, why ChatGPT as the genetic pretest trainers have moved to like 6. The same way we're having new skillful ways.
So these dealers could even evolve.
They could evolve,
get better.
They are intelligent, they have intelligence.
They keep asking NDL every time that despite the seizures, why do we still have... They forgetting that these dealers... So that's why the main energy should be directed towards demand reduction. Actually, yes, exactly. So, I was speaking to, just like I mentioned demand reduction, I was speaking to an ACN, she's over in, in NDLA. She mentioned that we had guys that were not stealing generators and they were not stealing gas cookers. What were they stealing? They were stealing the hose that were connected to it. Why will you come to steal and risk your life? And the next thing you're stealing hose because they want to do ice and bunker. They want to smoke with bulbs. Now you wonder that you're not even considering the consequences. How far have you gone? So the best way to really, really stop, if you want to really correct and make a change, is to correct it from the beginning. Emotional regulation skills, teaching these things, and then skill acquisition.
Right. So let's continue. Still on those signs, we'd like to know, just so we can spot something or someone who is about to go off the ramp, as they say.
Well, I would also like Dr. Ova has actually handled a lot of cases like that. But then, one major one I would say is when the child begins to feel, that you begin to perceive the aura of independence. The child feels like, and I can take it all, I can handle it alone. So that child will feel like, nah, it's fine. So there's that deception of it's okay, I can have it together. So that's one. And then secondly, beyond independence is also secrecy. When you see that the child is very, very skillful at hiding things, you just held the child's phone by chance and it's like, no, just leave it. Like, you're like, I just want to help you plug. And you're like, I'm not even doing you come into the room. You should have told me before entering my room.
Red flag.
Yeah, so you begin to see a lot of discretion. I wouldn't call it discretion, secrecy playing out. So, from there you can see that I think something, that would now actually bring you to the, to the point of you trying to now try to like look for an underlying information that you can get and then see, maybe you talk to someone. You cannot do it yourself because you don't even know the science. You don't even know how to get the science. Just like you cannot talk to someone and say, I think you are psychotic. I think you are schizophrenic. You can't talk to someone and say, I think you're addicted to drug. You need rehabilitation. They are survey curriculums. They are principles. They are guides on how to know. There are metrics that people actually use. So when you look at that, it's just like you're speaking to someone about, how do I do something in project management? And the person tells you using the STAR approach. When you look at the situation, there is a task, look at what is achievable, look at the result. That's the same way. A parent, there are formulas to these things. You don't randomly think. If not, you may even create a greater demon than what you're trying to keep. So let me allow Dr. Ope answer that.
Yeah, I mean, what you have said, is a long one for, families to pick from, especially that this, you understand your child's pre-drug use personality. That means you need to first of all know that your child is not as secretive with his information or her information before you can say, oh, he's now more secretive.
Oh, well,
you see, that still brings us to we families, parents understanding their children, giving them that space where they can engage with them. Right. So if you give that space, you know that when this child returns from school, he probably sits in the parlor and watch cartoons with his siblings. But now he's straight to his room.
There's a withdrawal.
Yes, he's now withdrawn from, family engagement. He doesn't want to maintain eye contact with you, the mom or the father or other siblings. Or maybe perhaps you see the guy change his friends. He used to come home with one particular Abdul Malik, but now he's coming home with Nuruddin. You need to ask yourself, what about Abdul Malik? Why Nuruddin? What is the difference between Nuruddin and Abdul Malik?
Or Pretty Devil.
So you understand now. And so he might say, no, I don't like what Abdul Malik is doing anymore. What is it that Abdul Malik? It is possible that sincerely Abdul Malik is the devil. So you see, you need to be part of your children's life. So it's possible that Abdul Malik, yes, is trying to make him indulge and he's staying away. It's also possible that Malik does not want to use. And so Abdul Malik is now avoiding him. It's too dull for the new vibe he's beginning to trend with. Right? Now, another thing that families may have overlooked is they have relinquished their function of parenting to teachers. So how you say, do we start doing the work of teacher? No, you can pay surprise visits to your children.
In school?
Yes. I've had parents tell me how, that helped their child. Even a patient told me that helped him, because personally too, that helped me. I'll be in the class and my mom just come around. I'll go for extra classes and she just come around. We just stand at the door, at the window behind. And I'll just turn and say, look at mom. Mom is there. She has been there for like 10 minutes. So somehow, or she'll say, yes, and
she's seeing you outside of the house.
Exactly. She's not doing it as if she came to monitor me. She's like, I brought popcorn for you. So I didn't see it from the perspective. Exactly.
I was going to relate because anytime my mom came unannounced, she came with food or something. So, and I didn't even know that maybe this was what was happening.
So I would interpret that to mean care, not monitor. Right. But if you're just gonna say, okay, I want to be sure you're in class.
This boy.
You might even start preparing for those visits.
Exactly. So somehow, we have to find a way to package our care. I tell parents that indeed everything they do to their children is out of love.
True.
But unfortunately, they may not do it in respect, which is why the children interpret those gestures as,
so children should be respected. I just want to...
Yeah. So
because it might sound like a crazy idea. Some people say, respect my children, the one I brought into this world. What do you mean?
When a father said, talk to him, maybe he will talk to you. They say, talk to my child, maybe he will talk to me. What is the difference between me and you? You are the parent of this child. Now
okay, you mean they tell you that?
So parents say, maybe my child will talk to you.
Okay.
Why is your child willing to talk to somebody else and not willing to talk to you? I'm not saying that there are instances where you want to discuss with a therapist. But there are information that if this child had volunteered to you, we won't be here now. But because you never allowed that space, you were always the ego father or the ego mother. A child told me how he would want to talk to the father. The father would say, don't be behaving like a girl, like a woman. Go away, go on. Be on your own. It's not proper. That in fact, when he was in school outside the country, for about 3 or 4 years, the only conversation between him and his dad is, have you seen the alert? Yes, daddy. Good. When you say bye-bye, say, And then when he comes home, he can be at home for 3 weeks and has not seen his father in the same compound. Right? Now, so some men would think that, but I'm giving the money.
Making provisions.
I'm making the provision. Right? Now, but they don't feel...
social ventilation.
Exactly. So we must begin to understand. So we must know our children's pre-use personality before you even know when there's a difference.
But does this work for friends and colleagues as well?
Of course, yes. Now, if you don't know that, now I know that Mr. Solomon is very intelligent and passionate about drug addiction. So if you had come to them and say something, I'll be like, after this show, I'll say, what's wrong with you? Are you sure you're okay? Right? Now, but parents don't know they are so first thing is they should even know their child's behavior, personality before. Now again, does the child now eat less or more? There are certain substances that if you take, it is to make you eat more. Some, it will make you eat less. Now, is there change in weight? It's not as if he's beginning to fast or he's sit in the gym now. He's losing weight. What is the problem? Or now his sleep pattern has changed. Or he now oversleeps. Normally, he'll be ready by 5 p.m. for church or something or for prayers. But by 5:30, he's still on the bed. Or he's supposed to wake up for school by 6 a.m. But by 6:30, he's still dragging off the bed. Now he's beginning to miss appointments. He's now challenging curfew time. He's meant to be home. Normally, he's home by 4 p.m.
every norm.
Yes, every norm before, because that is not allowing him to manage his drug use behavior, his new behavior. Right? Now, you see, if you're able to notice all of these things, that child is trying to manage that behavior so that you don't realize he's using it. When parents come here and say, oh, my child just started using it, I say, don't say that. You didn't get to know the day he started. It's not possible.
You don't
In fact, so they now say, hey, boy, it's not a big deal. I say, it's already a big deal. The fact that you now know. Because no child starts using drug that will let you know today that he's using the drug. Most times is that they want to hide it from you. So, and the point at which they are not able to hide anymore tells you that they are not able to manage that behavior without you knowing about it. So, of course, at the point you are knowing, the junior probably smokes outside the house. He can't bring it home because he knows it's against the norm. But the point comes when he wakes up at night, he's restless, the urge is there, he wants to use, he's craving. He will now learn to bring it home against the consequence that daddy will frown at it if daddy knows. And then at night, you wake up and probably go to the garage or just somewhere, open the windows and stay and smoke around the window or stuff, which is why he will still be sleeping in the daytime when he's supposed to wake up. Because he has to wait till all of you go to bed to do what's in there to do. Right? Now, so if all of these things are not taken into cognizance, you don't recognize these patterns. Or, okay, do we talk about more conventional drugs that young people abuse? I won't mention them on this show, but there are certain substances if you see in the rooms of your children, you should be careful. You enter your child's room and certain things are not there. You should be thinking, at least you have the internet to use it. What is this meant for?
Just snap and scan.
Some of the vapes being used now, they look very colorful. Some of these drugs look very colorful,
like a cologne
and stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, and then so you need to check, snap it, search the image on Google. Google can also help you. You know,
that's fair.
This actually, this is very, very, very touchy, because if you look at how far this can go, last year we had a milestone. So we, in partnership with Vigada under the Federal Ministry of Youth Development, Honorable Minister Ayodele Olawande, and then there was an initiative that was launched, Your Initiative. So our mental health helpline was also part of that initiative. So we started receiving calls. People go to ChatGPT and say, I want to kill myself. And then part of the suggested contact they see is money contact. They say our contact too. Now, so one of these ladies reached out to us, and then she said that her auntie abused her. Another auntie abused her. Like maybe 3 aunties abused her. Then to top it up, an icing on the cake, a touch of their own type of glamour, an uncle abused her. Now you can know the abuse will be different. Now, so she tried telling her mom, but it looks like as though she was not communicating. Sometimes, people, you're like, these people should be respected. But, sometimes we translate respect to be submission. So because of that, we don't give that ventilation, that space, that platform for communication. Now, this lady spoke to us, called us. We're like, is your mom there? He said, no, I stay with that auntie that abused me. Tell your mom. So, most of these people hide under the guise of philanthropic services. So even the mom knows that she does not have the materials necessary to keep you financially within her own reach. So she's aware. Some people decide to stay in denial of these things because they're like, I cannot even handle. Let me just be praying for her. But you don't know the damage it will do. At the end of the day, we have to speak to the parents and be like, you don't know how far this will go. Because look at an issue of a guy that was raped by his uncle. A guy was raped by his uncle. Attended a boarding school. Now communicated this information to his parents, and they're like, no, it's not possible. Keep quiet there. What do you know? Just now they just disbursed the information. They're like, no, we are not taking this from you. At the end of the day, this guy goes to boarding school because I feel like his information was rebuffed, and then getting to boarding school again. Now he can no longer in the hostel bathe like normal guys. You see a guy and he's being careful. Now, the danger of not listening to your child is that they want to now develop a savior complex. Now want to find a way to cope with it. No, like I must not fail. They begin to see themselves as the savior of the family. No, I must not fail. I don't want to fail. I don't want them. I don't want to be a disgrace to my family. I must fix this. Now, that is where the deception comes in. Now, because you want to fix this matter. So this guy, in his attempt to fix it, when he was done with secondary school, he started coming to him now because there is a universal law of gravitation that states that a man is a living magnet. He attracts to himself his most dominant thoughts to reality. What you fear the most will happen to you. I'm a Christian. I'll point that. There's a scripture says, Job 3:25. The things I feared the most has happened to me. So this guy, the more he was scared of that experience again, the more he finds himself being susceptible to wanting to be like a girl. So now his fight for the thought of I'm not a lady. He started acting like a lady. Now, how did he cope with it? Because I don't want to be the bad sheep. I don't want to be the bad egg. I want to make my family proud. No, Now, this it started from my parent not understanding my information that was communicating to them. So there was a different types of intelligence that was operational for me. And what did this guy do? He started sleeping with ladies. He started dating more girls. Okay, so because the more he has to have carnal knowledge with a lady, the more he feels like a man and does not have to think. Can you see how that young guy that is developing, how he has formed this opinion, channel it? Because the neural pathways that will open his mind is that the more I do this, I get the reward. Okay, so for a moment I feel like, so it's a lie. I feel like I'm a guy now because I just did what a guy should do. Now the danger of it is that it got to a location whereby like he didn't find the normal, the normal, let's say let's say it's merchants that would actually serve him that particular, commodity. Let's just call it commodity like that. It got to that point, and there was the daughter of the landlord where he went to do his NYSC, and he got there, and she came to give him something, and he tried making his way with and at the end of the day, in the process of trying to like rape the lady, before she was trying to run, whether the oversecretion of the adrenaline or the outburst, the shock, she just died. She hit her head on something and she died. Now that guy has to be taken to the cell, had to face judgment, and then now look at how dangerous it is in the society. Don't forget that justice, except for equity, justice is ready to serve you. Now this is a guy that his major fear was doing something with other guys, that he has to do something so much with a guy that he built dependency, behavioral dependence and addiction with that particular. Now he's now going to be sent in the midst of guys. So now that kind of guy now we need more of rehabilitation. So you can see the danger of how it ripple effects into a lot of vices, a lot of things you will not do if you do not listen to your child.
Indeed. You've dumped a whole lot on me, and that's very interesting. But what I will just add is, you said something about you can't diagnose and say you have a drug problem. So professionals are still important. I say this because I think there was a time maybe this is too much information, but there was a time, I had a little back and forth with my dad, and he asked me, "Are you taking something?" Because the thing was that I'm a quiet person, but at that point in time, sometimes frustrations. So it was really the first time he had seen me express myself. Normally he just keeps quiet around the house. I don't even know if he has a voice, So the first time he heard something come out, I was like, did you, So what I think now is that, based on what we've said here, if you see some of these signs and you suspect, you still need professionals. I don't think you should just go and say, I know what you are doing, you're a drug addict. I don't think that's going to work out very well. Yes. So I want to quickly just, for the lack of time, I want to just bombard you with a bit of quick questions. First of all, can you tell us what is the biggest lie young Nigerians believe about drugs?
Oh, well, the biggest lie. Well, I would want to group it in the aspect of drug misuse and drug abuse. Now, for drug abuse, one of the biggest lies is that I think if I take this, I think I'll be fine. And then it's just a temporary, result in a way, because it shifts you away. That escaping, it's like an emotional avoidant, pattern. So the fact that I'm able to take it, I escape not reality. I'm not escaping reality, but I'm escaping that experience of reality for that moment. So that's the biggest lie. You make you feel like you can escape the experience of reality.
But you can't.
But you cannot escape it. And the second biggest lie for drug abuse is that, you feel like you're not addicted to it. But you can, so it's like a cognitive dissonance. Two conflicting, truth about something. You're like, I can actually, funny enough, funny enough, I can actually stop doing this thing.
Yes.
But you're doing it. But like, bro, stop. Because, for a man to fall is not an event, it's a process. He has been falling before just like you said, you saw it because it has been happening. But you now saw the expression of it coming to flow out. Now, the second area of drug misuse is that is the biggest lie. Because it actually like masks underlying chronic illnesses. At the end of the day, you tell yourself, "Oh, I just came back from work. God, I beg. Like, let me just use alabukun. There's one drug they call alabukun. Or you want to use, diclofenac or ibuprofen. Now, of course, this thing can create holes in your stomach, which are like ulcer. So you feel like, let me just take ibuprofen. Like, I'm not misusing drugs. So I'm not relying on. Now, you take those things because you think you're trying to, but they are actually natural alternatives, healthcare alternatives. You could actually go swimming, go for a massage. You could go work out. You go for like an evening walk, but then you want to use ibuprofen because any small thing, can you get me paracetamol? Any small thing, your body probably, there's a mechanism, there's a principle of operation that maybe a sovereign being has kept into your body, that when you are in a space of breakdown, you're having that downtime in your body. Maybe just a good rest, good tea, good water, and then you're okay. But then So one of the lies is that people that are working, we do a webinar May 1st, we call it I Tire No Be Fever, which means that the fact that you're tired does not mean that you should go and use a quick fix over the cancer drugs just for you to be okay. You need to follow the process. If you can, other countries are very skillful in learning yoga. There are certain countries, in Europe, you see most of the Schengen countries, they can teach you yoga. Okay, just go. You can use meditation. All this Chinese, all this, you can do meditation. But yeah, we can swim. People that are married could even decide to use sex. It's actually a coping mechanism to release stress hormones. But there are other things. So most times, some people now, they rely on drugs. Any small thing, drugs. Any small thing is drugs. So that's
I have a friend. Okay. His secret weapon is sleep. The whole world could be crashing down, and I'm worrying how are you going to handle this thing? It's okay, and then he sleeps. He sleeps
his way through.
Extended sleeps, and when he wakes up, he has this vigor to fix all the problems that he was not ready for. And I sometimes wonder if he substituted that sleep for something else, what could it have been? But he sleeps and he comes back. So sometimes he advises people that, bro, go and sleep first.
What works for one may not
work for another.
Yes, his own could be sleep. Of course, it could have disadvantages on the long run. But sleep is always good. Yeah, his own could be sleep. Another person could just be that I just want to.
Or music.
Yes, you see, when
some people feel withdraw if they've gone maybe a day too without they've not listened.
Like that white noise sound. That you want that lullaby. Yeah. So, like me, I probably would like what's it called, Billie Eilish, and not because it's a sad song. I want to listen to it.
That's not addiction.
No, it's not an addiction because I listen to songs like Enya, Yanni, because it just comes with that classical vibe.
I see your music taste.
You understand? So it's not necessary. So it's a genre that I just choose to like.
I mean, I think the advice here is people should learn good coping strategies.
Yes.
Yeah, because most people will even tell you that they take alcohol to relax from issues, from pressure and all of that. So they must understand that yes, alcohol is a coping strategy.
True.
Because for that time, temporarily, it seems as if the problem is off. But that it will come back to the same problem.
Exactly.
But there are good coping strategies, which some Mr. Solomon have mentioned. Yoga, meditation, rest. I don't know why he has not mentioned about the great work I just doing about mental health in the workspace. Right. In fact, I'm aware that I just have done a conference, and presented in a conference in South Africa.
Yes,
and even done a research, across Abuja metropolis, right, on the effect of the people's work, what they are doing on their mental health, cutting across depression and anxiety. Right. So individuals must understand that, you see, I tire, no be fever. It's not bad to say that you are tired. Okay, it's even in homes, for parents, for wives, for husbands. It's not bad to say, honey, I'm tired. You are in a relationship. It's not bad to say, can we have a break?
Yes, they just space
right?
it.
Can we have a break doesn't mean can we end this relationship? No, I need a break.
Right? Indeed, a break indeed.
Yes. So, and then of course there can be modules to undergo so that the break does not become end of relationship.
Even for the work one, sometimes you can tell your DOP,
yes,
give me some time. I'm coming.
Exactly,
don't rush me.
Exactly.
So it's also part of mental health. I was talking to Henry by the way. So it's fine.
Yes, I mean, stress and burnout.
Yeah.
And that's why people take substances.
Exactly.
To stay alert on the job.
Yes.
And this is affecting.
So you just have to meet up.
Okay.
Then if you die tomorrow, after 4 days, the HR says people should resume.
And one of these keys, one of the ways to also cope is to put a call.
Tell us, someone is secretly struggling with substance abuse right now, and they've happened to come upon this podcast. They are watching right now. What do you say to them?
Okay, someone that is struggling, if you belong to two different kinds of people, there are some people who tell them that your face is yours to keep and your story is ours to honor. Some people want to be healed, but we tell them you don't need a face to be healed. Because some people rather die.
What do you mean a fake?
A face to be healed in the sense that you don't need to be profiled. That we have your name and your pictures. Because some people, it's still ego space. Some people do not want to come out of that ego space to be healed. So we tell them that your story is ours to honor and your face is yours to keep. But then for people that are just willing to come around, of course, it's available. We have trained mental health experts that actually want to talk to you. If you feel you're stressed, you feel like you're stuck, then you need to know that it doesn't end there. You just need to wake up. There are seasons in life. We use a formula, and the formula is a summer, winter, autumn, spring. During autumn, the leaves will fall, but of course they will rise again. You need to know that it's a deception to think that this is it. And because that's how it is. Whenever it comes so pressing, you feel like there is no light at the end of this thing. So you need to know that you probably just need to sleep on it. Just talk to someone. Just keep talking. Let us check on you. It's okay for you to reach out to us. And of course, you will not be labeled. You will not be judged. I think that's fair.
Thank you so much.
And it's okay
Solomon.
to be down.
It's okay to be down.
It's okay to
to
be in
down.
bottom. Yeah.
Yes,
Indeed.
yes.
I think J.K. Rowling once said, ground zero, when you fall to the bottom, is actually a place you can build a foundation from.
Sure.
So that's how we round off the show today. Thank you so much for coming, Mr. Solomon.
Thank
It's been an enlightening one. Well, do join us again. We'll be coming your way every week, Beyond Addiction Podcast. We want to enlighten you, we want to dispel some misconceptions, and we want to tell you that there is life beyond addiction and even before it. See you next time. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Bye for now.